So whilst everybody is off on the brand new Matariki holiday, they've got everybody in New Zealand has got me here in Australia doing Frogs on Friday. Hi there, my name is Mark Smith. I'm Group Managing Director of FrogRecruitment in New Zealand and People to People in Australia. So on this public holiday, I have got a lot to talk about in terms of the jobs and employment market in New Zealand. We'll be covering off the GDP numbers that were released last week in our numbers section. We've got 3 jobs that we need to fill today. And I've also got some really interesting comments from the managing director of FrogRecruitment in New Zealand, Shannon Barlow, when she was on 7 Sharp talking about taking a new or seizing the day and seeking out new opportunities right now. So stay tuned for that as well. So a lot to talk about. Let's jump into our numbers. So the big news last week was the release of the quarterly GDP numbers for New Zealand. And unfortunately, New Zealand experienced a slight negative growth number, so minus 0.2%. And that was a little bit of a shock. So what I thought I'd do is just try and delve into some of these numbers a little bit to see, well, why this is happening. Because we are yet to see it really affect the jobs market in New Zealand at this stage. But could it in the future? Not too sure. So the first graph I've got here, and thanks to Jacob, the man behind the scenes, popping up these graphics every single time. If you want a beer with Jacob, Mount Wellington, normally on a Friday night, you'll probably be there on the public holiday for sure. So here are the numbers then on the different industries and what's happened in terms of quarterly change. So you can see that the Q1 22 is the light blue numbers, and you can see that mining took a big dip, manufacturing, retail trade, finance and insurance, rental as well, info media, were all on the decline. So it's quite a broad-based decline there. On the upside, though, for the last quarter, and the most interesting number I saw here was the construction number was higher, and that seems, given a supply chain constraints there, I was quite surprised by that. Similarly with wholesale trade, and education was very much on the rise there as well. So whereas the dark blue numbers are Q4 of last year, you can see more of a broad-based increase in GDP across the industry sectors in New Zealand. It's changed, and the decline, the biggest of which we saw in mining last quarter. Let's go to the next graph for us, Jacob. And this is the quarterly Q1 22 versus pre-pandemic Q4 2019. And I should do a shout out to ANZ Research and Stats New Zealand for pulling these numbers together. So you can see when we compare Q1 22 to Q4 2019 in terms of the dollar value of these sectors, you can see professional, scientific, and tech are at the top side. Health, no real surprise with health everywhere. Wholesale trade, retail's up, public admin's up, but where are we seeing the biggest decline? Transport, warehousing, accommodation, arts, mining, finance, and insurance. So that's in the absolute value of those particular sectors, and the declines you can see there in the percentage numbers there as well. Let's go to the next one for me. And I thought, some perspective. When we hear this sort of negative news about the GDP growth, I thought it would be good to see the GDP per capita since 1992. And so it's not a bad news story, New Zealand. So you can see that it's flattened out in the last quarter, so that right at the top there. And you can see the decline for the pandemic. But overall, GDP per capita in New Zealand is substantially higher than where it has been since 1992. The biggest dips there you can see are the GFC and 08, 09, the pandemic. But still a good news story all round. A little bit more violent changes in the last couple of years, though, with the pandemic. Okay, so that's it for the numbers. We've got this story from 7 Sharp with Shannon Barlow that we've got to get to. We've also got these 3 jobs that we need to fill. To get us to those 3 jobs, we actually have a legal role being handled out of our Auckland office. So if we want to roll that video with Shab. Thanks, Jacob.
Auckland, Shab Neil at Frog here. We're on the hunt for a legal admin to start immediately on Monday. The role is based in Queen Street, Auckland CBD, and runs for about 6 to 8 weeks. You don't necessarily have to have legal experience. However, you must be an admin whiz. You have strong attention to detail and have worked in a professional environment. Some of the tasks you will be dealing with is file management, diary management, and also end-of-month billing. The pay rate for this is $30 per hour, plus your 8% holiday pay on top of that. Do you want to find out more about this role? Do you think this is your next adventure? Reach out to my colleague Kirsty or myself by giving me a call on 0936207881 or Kirsty on 098696255. Thank you.
Okay, all right. We've got 3 jobs we need to fill today, New Zealand. So it's Fill Job Friday. Okay, here's the first one. It's in Auckland. It's $25 an hour. It's a 6-month temp role, reporting through to the warehouse manager here, where you'll be picking and packing and dispatching medical device products. So the role's called a kit assembler. Starting on Monday. On Monday, if you need work on Monday, you can start. The person to contact is Shav in our Auckland office on 3620781 or shavneil@frogrecruitment.co.nz. You can, of course, apply to the links that are in the comments right now. Jump onto those and you can apply for these roles straight away. Here's the next one. It's a personal assistant. It's based in Wellington CBD, $30 to $36 an hour. It's a temp role starting ASAP. You'll be central point of contact for 2 managers in this particular role, where you'll be providing general administration and secretarial support, diary management, and organising meetings and travel and the like. You must have worked in a similar role before with Microsoft Office skills. Chitra in our Wellington office is the person you need to speak to there. So that's 978-6610 in Wellington, or chitra@frogrecruitment.co.nz. Here's the next one. An office administrator and legal assistant in Wellington. So it's $37 per hour plus holiday pay. So where it's a pretty fast-paced environment, where we're looking for somebody who's worked in a law firm before, who's assisted partners in the broader team with diary and email management, prepping documents, data entry, some invoice billing, and etc. So you've got to be detail focused for this one. Chitra also in our Wellington office, chitra@frogrecruitment.co.nz. So there they are. They're the 3 jobs that we need to fill today. It's a kit assembler. Speak to Shav in our Auckland office. In Wellington, we have a PA role and also an office administrator / legal assistant. And you should speak to Chitra in Wellington for those ones as well. Righto. So now we've got an interesting video from 7 Sharp, where the managing director of Frog Recruitment in New Zealand was asked some pretty prudent questions about whether you should change jobs right now. If you want to roll that video for us, Jacob.
Right, if you are on the lookout for work, well, the timing couldn't be better. Because with Kiwis now able to leave the nest and low unemployment, workplaces are crying out for employees. New figures show that it's resulting in pay rises too. Give it to me, I'm worth it. SEEK's employment report shows job adverts are up 15% on last year. And to attract and retain workers, so too are pay offers. In the top 10, salaries for production workers in manufacturing, transport and logistics grew by 33%. Grocery assistants and traffic controllers saw increases of between 28 and 30%. And the pay packet for labourers and tradies jumped by 26%. Across the regions, Hawke's Bay had the largest number of jobs to fill. So, is it time for you to throw your hat in the ring and change your career path? Well, for more on this, we're joined by Shannon Barlow from FrogRecruitment. And Shannon, is now a good time for people to consider a career change?
Now that businesses, one of the biggest challenges is finding good people and retaining their staff. So hasn't really been a better time to look at your options. So rather than a career change, I would say that it's a great time to look at improving your career situation.
And does that include salary rises for those people already in one of those roles? Is it a good time to ask for a pay rise?
Has been no better time. So as I was saying, with the labour shortage, businesses don't want to lose the employees that they already have. So they'll be very motivated to listen and to look at what they can do to retain you. So I think it's that time to be able to put some pressure on employers as well, to look at the increases in living costs and inflation, to be able to look at those reasons for why you could get that pay rise. So there hasn't been a better time.
So Shannon, what are your top tips for negotiating a raise?
Sure. Well, a top tip would be to know the market. So the first thing to do is to do your research. So whether that's finding out what similar roles are paying, but also it might be looking at doing your preparation, having your performance in mind, and also to be able to look at when was the last time that you got an increase. I think another key thing is to be transparent and professional. So if you were looking at other opportunities and considering perhaps another role that's paying more, it's okay to let your employer know. But you've got to be really careful about how you do that. So you want to be able to open a discussion and not to come across as creating an ultimatum.
I'm thinking of the fact that trade salaries are kind of on the rise as well, Shannon. Is it time for school leavers to consider apprenticeships over university, do you think?
So apprenticeships might be a good option. I think particularly that the government has extended their apprenticeship boost scheme. So it's really motivating businesses to take on more apprentices. I think one of the key things is to look at to weigh up those options of the short-term gain versus your long-term career prospects. And I guess if you play your cards right, you may be able to get both.
Love it. Thank you so much, Shannon. Really timely advice and great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Fascinating stuff, but probably not as fascinating as the Twitter poll results from last week. And here's what the results were. So last week we asked, would you accept a counter-offer in your current role after handing in your resignation? Bloody hell. Nearly 50% of Kiwis said, yeah, you know what, I would. That's not good news if you're a hiring manager and you're looking to hire somebody, you make an offer. Well, 46.7% of Kiwis would say, you know what, I'd consider it a counter-offer. My advice to everybody out there, though, is if you're actually if you're looking to get into the market, but you would consider a counter-offer, cover off all those counter-offer details before you enter the market. If it's about a pay rise or more flexibility, speak to your boss beforehand. Okay, let's now have a look at this week's poll. Would you know how to explain redundancy on your CV during a job interview? So if you've been made redundant, how do you explain that in a job interview? Could you explain it? Answer our Twitter poll at FrogRecruitment on Twitter. Go to our LinkedIn page, and if you could answer there on all of our socials, and we'll release the results of that particular survey next week. Righto, that's it, everybody. Enjoy the public holiday. I'll keep working here in Sydney, and Shannon's still on her break for another couple of weeks. So you've got me again next week for Frogs on Friday. We'll see you then.